Well, hello all, and thanks for joining us for this welcome to our vineyard tour with Castello Banfi. I'm Andrew Catchpole, editor of Harpers Wine and Spirit, and I'm joined today by Banfi's owner, Cristina Mariani-May, who's in New York City, and Jgor Marini, I'm not doing well on the names this morning, Jgor Marini and Laura Scaffetti, who are among the vines on the estate in Tuscany. We also have Rebecca Fraser from Banfi's UK importer Louis Latour, who's on hand to help the session go smoothly. Rebecca's decided to put a beautiful shot of vines there, so she's not distracting us, but hello, Rebecca. So hello, Team Banfi. Good to see you all.
Good to see you, Andrew.
Good to see you. Okay, well, with Italy's top wine surging in popularity globally and Brunello di Montalcino at the front of that wave, we figured that there couldn't be a better time or apt time to focus in on one of the leading producers in this famous region. So with a little help from the Banfi team, live from both New York and Tuscany, the plan today is to take you on an exploration and taster of what contributes to this producer's vinous DNA. First up, we're going to hear from Cristina about the philosophy behind Banfi and its approach to winemaking, before we head back to the vines with Jgor and Laura to discover how this winery's stunning location, climate and soils influence the vines and the final wines that Banfi produces. Then, to wrap up this philosophical and viticultural exploration, the session will conclude with Jgor talking us through Banfi's Poggio alle Mura Brunello, the 2016, the most recent release, just come out, I think, and he's going to explain in his own words how the vineyard, the viticulture and the winemaking are all reflected in the final wine. Point of housekeeping, we absolutely welcome questions during the session. It would be great if we can keep it interactive. Please do use the Q&A function, chat among yourselves by all means on the chat if you want to ask a question, and we'll answer as we go along as best we can, or perhaps save them to the end of the session if they're more general. Okay, Cristina, live from New York. Shall we begin? And my first question to you, pretty broad, how would you describe Banfi's philosophy and how important is sustainability within that? Because I know that's a big part of what you're about as well.
Absolutely. So Banfi's philosophy is really to be pioneering and experimental in everything we do. So I am live from New York, so you can tell by my accent, I'm American, not British, or Jgor has a more beautiful Italian accent. So my family actually came over to Montalcino after being wine importers in New York, where we still are, since 1919, so over 100 years. And our philosophy was to go into Montalcino or to go to Italy, and this was in the 1970s, and to work on elevating the standards of all Italian wines. At the time, Italian wines are not the Brunellos we know of today and the super Tuscans. They were more everyday drinking wines. So what our philosophy, also coming as outsiders, Americans coming to Tuscany was more of a rarity. So when we came in, we had a philosophy of being very open-minded and very dedicated to what consumers around the globe, since we sell in about 90 different countries, consumers around the globe would find very appealing. So obviously, pure and natural wines has been on the forefront of what Castello Banfi's mission is. When we came into Montalcino, most of the land where we have today, our acreage was virgin soil. So it really hadn't been planted. And if it had been cultivated, it was just for sharecroppers, for wheat or different agriculture. So what we wanted to do was start from a clean slate and respect the territory. We are only the third owners of the 12th century castle, Castello Banfi, that Jgor has enviably he has behind him. And as such, our philosophy as a family was really to maintain and protect the terroir and respect the tradition of the area, but bringing a fresh outlook, bringing a mind of innovation, research and experimentation. So Brunello di Montalcino, Andrew, is what the territory is well known for. Today, there's been a renaissance more in the Brunello wines. And I like to think that a lot of it was started at Banfi, because we brought together researchers from all over the world, particularly in Bordeaux and Burgundy. We worked with the University of Pisa, the University of Milan. And what we wanted to do was bring them all to Banfi to work as a research center. Because we have such diversity in soil, different microclimates, such a range of terroir and different elevation from 300 up to 900 meters, we wanted to say, hey, let's use this site, this facility, all in one location to begin research and development to further improve Italian wines, particularly Sangiovese for Brunello, but also really all wines. So we planted Merlot and Syrah. We tried Pinot Noir, didn't quite work, but we love our Vermentino, our Pinot Grigio, our Chardonnay, Fontenelle. So I think always from the beginning, we said we have to do this very naturally. So sustainability was part of the research project. Andrew, our first and foremost, one of our greatest prides, we were the first winery in the world to receive the triple ISO certification out of Geneva for exceptional environmental, social, and ethical responsibility, which is really a great honor because it's not easy to achieve that. And it takes historically understanding the past, but then building upon it with innovation technology and a lot of passion. And it's long-term. So we're a family, we're wonderful people. Even though I'm American, we've got Jgor, Laura, our entire team is in Italy, and I get to go back and forth. I have a good life. And they take care and really nurture our vines to be the healthiest that they can be. And Jgor will walk through that in more detail, exactly all the techniques that we use.
Yeah. Well, no, we over here in Europe, we love our American cousins. And I think what's really interesting about what you've just said is that you've got this incredible heritage. And I've been lucky enough to visit Banfi and this incredible heritage. And I didn't realize you're only third family in the whole lifespan of this incredible castle to inherit it, but then to bring some new, some fresh, some sort of maybe sort of slightly sort of sideways kind of thinking to it and do things a little differently, but with that respect that's very much though how you say Banfi were pioneers and have been pioneers, but that's in my mind the way that Brunello, Tuscany, Italy as a whole, the broader wine world, I suppose, but has very much moved that way. So that's interesting. Now we spoke a little bit earlier about not just the heritage, but embracing those pioneering techniques and technology. And there's a phrase that you yourselves use, it's on your website, the pursuit of in the pursuit of excellence. So could you elaborate a little bit more on those specific practices, technologies that have resulted from your research and your kind of innovation at Banfi?
Sure. So one of the primary ones we did was the research with the clonal work with Sangiovese. So we today have there are about 45, 50 nationally registered clones of Sangiovese with the Italian government. 15 of those clones were actually registered by Banfi. So we spent over 25 years narrowing it down from 650 clones of Sangiovese to 180 presumed clones to 15 that we planted in different vineyards and polyclonal vineyards in order to best represent the inherent characteristics of Sangiovese for Brunello and also to bring better vineyard stability. So why we're really proud is we're the only single producer in Italy ever to register our work with the Italian government. So the idea, Andrew, is that, all ships will rise with the incoming tide. So if we can find better research, we share it with the government, everybody can use it. We produce books, we produce a sustainability report every year, and we document all that research. So shared knowledge is the best for the territory. So that's one of the ways of research that we have shared. And then, of course, it's vineyard by vineyard management, which continues to evolve as we understand more the clones, as we see the climatic changes. I mean, a little fun story, Andrew, is that in our vineyards about 7 years ago, they discovered a whale fossil that's over 10 meters long, completely intact, and it's over 5 million years old. So it was just resting on top of our vineyards, and archaeologists found it because there were fossilized shark teeth hanging out from the clay, the crete soil. And they dug just below the soil. And here is this piece that is really a national, I shouldn't even say, or world treasure as far as marine science goes. So that's when Italy all used to be under the sea. And nowadays we're high up in elevation, but understanding how these fossilized shells in the soil interacts with the mines is something that we work to be pioneers of and share. But once we get the wines down into the vineyard, we have these tanks that we actually patented at Banfi called the Horizon tanks. And what they are, they're hybrid fermentation tanks that are half stainless steel and half wood fermenters. Oh, great, we have a video of it. So as you see, not before had ever the technology come together from the two manufacturers of the oak barriques to age beautiful wines and ferment beautiful wines in, but with the ease and use of stainless steel for a fermentation process. So we wanted to take the best of both, and the engineers had never quite figured out how to merge the wood, the breathable, expandable wood, with the inert stainless cap and base. So we got the engineers, they patented a silicone gasket that expands and contracts with the wood, and it allows us now to ferment in the French oak barrique, French oak, for our fine red wines, and then we can have the easy use of the cap and the base. So this patented technology is actually open on the market now, and it's being sold all over the world. So it's technology like this blended with that innovation, but also respecting the naturalness. So obviously fermenting in wood gives such a beauty to the Sangiovese, such an ease, such an elegance. And because I think we're Americans, we think of the consumer first, Andrew. You know, a lot of producers historically had said, I make this wine this way, this is how my expression is. And if you don't like it, well, that's our expression of it. And we actually took a very different approach. We said, well, what is the consumer looking for? Now let's try to make a Brunello and a wine that is soft in style, doesn't have to be aged forever. And at Banfi, we were very proud that our previous Director General, Ezio Rivella, he actually was head of the World Entomological Society out of Paris. So he was actually able to enact laws and changes in the DOC and in the European Union to reduce the amount of aging from 5 years in wood for Brunello down to now it's 2, or it was 4.5. So it's not just in the technology in the winery, but it's also influencing the other producers and the politicians to look at new ways to produce wine. And let me add one more thing, because we're showing these beautiful pictures of Tuscany, and one of the big pieces that we're very proud of is the hospitality. So every person who's on this call, we want to welcome them to Castello Banfi, because the castle is an emblem. The winery is the technology and the science and the crafting. But in the castle, we have a Relais and Chateau hotel called Il Borgo, which is just beautiful. And our Ristorante and Taverna, the Ristorante just got a Michelin star, so we're so excited. So you can come and enjoy the cinghiale, you can enjoy our own produced olive oil and salsa balsamica and all the produce from our agricultural estate. And of course, some good Brunello and Super Tuscans. That goes without saying, but come visit us, come stay with us. We've opened after a long hiatus. It's been too long of a time for each and every one of us trapped inside. So come now and we will roll out the red carpet and uncork lots of good wines.
I'm delighted that I didn't realize actually that you've been awarded a Michelin star, which is fantastic. What I can say, you mentioned cinghiale. I had an unbelievable, it's about 10 years ago, unbelievable wild boar ragu at Banfi that I can still taste today. The wines were a given, obviously, but yeah, so that was superb. So gunning to come back, excellent. Well, Cristina, perhaps we'll hear a little bit more from you as we wrap up. I think that's a really good point. Appetite's whetted to dive into the vineyards. So Jgor, over to you. I think we've got your. There we go. See if we can highlight you for our audience. And What's it like there today in Tuscany? Sorry, I've got you on mute at the moment.
Here I am. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. So hi everybody, ciao Andrew, ciao Cristina. I'm so happy to be part of this webinar, but I'm the lucky one standing up in these beautiful vineyards under the sun. Even if today is about 28 degrees, so it's very hot, but luckily there's a little breeze that is make me survive this live webinar. So we are here in a beautiful place. I'm so happy and I wish you could be here with us.
Yes, we've Kate Sweet on the chat has just said, "Gosh, Jgor, that looks rubbish." Look terrible where you are. So that's great. So we've got Banfi the Castello behind you and the sweep of slope coming down. Now, this particular vineyard site, what's so special about it? We could extend that question to the other outlying vineyards, but yeah, tell us a little more actually about the vineyard itself. That would be great.
Poggio alla Mura is the name of the castle in my background. Poggio is the hill in Tuscany and the Mura are the walls, so immediately reminds to the position of the building. And the vineyards we are in now is taking the same name from the castle, so it's Poggio alla Mura, and is in a fantastic position in the south west of Montalcino appellation. And we are now in a kind of a very lucky triangle where everything is almost condensing what's in the back of the Banfi philosophy. So I can show you, we have the castle in the back. We are protected by the Amiata mountain in the east side, which is a former volcano, and we are facing the south. That's why I will get very tanned in the end of these 35 minutes and more. And we are about, let's say, 1 hour driving far away from the sea. So this magic triangle is making the position of Poggio alla Mura itself an amazing place for cultivating wines. And indeed, this was the place where the wines, Brunello, or let's say outstanding quality wines, since the 50s, when Brunello was not as famous as it is today. And so this is now the place we are representing, because it's really the key and probably the jewel of the Banfi estate.
Excellent. So how long has all this been? Cristina did mention, but I didn't quite pick up on it. Sort of how long have this particular vineyard been planted, and when was the rest of the estate sort of developed? So what are we looking at in terms of sort of vine age, etc., etc. What and also Sangiovese, the clones planted. A little bit more about that side of things. Yeah.
Sure. Poggio alla Mura first vineyard ever made of Brunello was 1997. So the plants are average 25, 30 years old here in Poggio alla Mura vineyards. And this, as I said, is really representing the top of our pioneer research, of study, of knowledge that we still, since the beginning, we try to, let's say, share with our colleagues and also with the territory, and trying to produce the highest quality possible with every single grape of the property. So Poggio alla Mura is 200 meters high average. It's a huge different kind of soils and microclimates. And so by following our, let's say, pioneer concept and view, we introduced in the Banfi estate, and not only here but everywhere, the concept of zonation by dividing all of the vineyards in little micro vineyards or zones, little parcels that we pick, ferment and age separately, each of them, in order to, let's say, make Banfi a constellation of single vineyards. So, and the reason why is sometimes a little difficult to explain, but luckily today we are in the place, and I can just show you briefly how deep can be the vineyards down there in the bottom compared to the place I am now. So it's quite, let's say, immediate to understand that the grapes down there will never be as ripened or with the same characteristics of the grapes up here in the top of the hill. And with this kind of concept, very smart concept, this big vineyard has been divided in 12 micro vineyards still today, all of them into the same area with the name Poggio alla Mura, but following the zonation concept, they are once again picked, sometimes also with different trellising system. I will go deeper into that afterwards, and fermented and aged separately. And the 12 wines obtained will be blended together just before bottling in order to become Brunello Poggio alle Mura, either Rosso di Montalcino Poggio alle Mura or Brunello Riserva. So this zonation was coming from the concept that we really deeply analyzed every part of the soil and every single corner of the estate in order to, let's say, increase our knowledge in the territory and in the effect that this is going to the grapes cultivated here. So, as Cristina said, we were under the ocean many million years ago. So that means that in the soil's composition, you can find chalk, you can find limestone. This Poggio alle Mura is very fertile in the top and is very, let's say, poor and dry and rich of stones in the bottom. So once again, the combination of soils and microclimates, age of the grapes is potentially producing a huge variety of different wines themselves. So it's just by knowing each of them that we can finally find out and produce a high quality, very, very premium wine, just by knowledge and following our pioneer philosophy since the beginning.
So presumably it's a fantastic way of giving you 12 or more all these sort of building blocks by which, with the given vintage, obviously there's going to be variation in each of those zones, and you can work with all these different aspects, which if you multiply out gives you innumerable different options in terms of. So how do you focus in on the Banfi style, the style that you're looking for, the Poggio alle Mura? I mean, how much of that is something that you will move towards a continuum, or how much do you allow it to sort of express and go off in different directions in each given vintage?
So let's say that finally, this is a lucky place that was born already in a fantastic place to produce marvelous wines. So what we are doing now is trying to, let's say, put everything we know, so knowledge, research, study, zonation, sustainability, to the service, at the service of the wine production, and in order to enrich the magic power of Poggio alle Mura estate and site. So as we said, we divided the landing zone, and that's the first. Then we are using a kind of a dripping irrigation that maybe you can see by following me. When the season is very hot, like for instance in 2017, and we are collecting water, we are saving 80% of the water we produce. Then we are, by just studying the soils and analyzing what's the behaviors of the plants into these soils, we are acting very gently in terms of treatments. So the lowest number of treatments possible, and when needed, with very, let's say, gentle ingredients, gentle to the environment. Then we are protecting erosion. We are trying to also keep the floras and the faunas of the estates. So everything is in order to, let's say, preserve and make the environment as wide as possible. We have some olive trees not far away from here into the Poggio alle Mura estate, which are 500 years old. And those are still producing a little bit of olives that we use to make our Poggio alle Mura extra virgin olive oil. So this kind of, let's say, 360 degrees of agricultural project is really a kind of sustainable hat, which is covering the wine production and just enriching what the nature is naturally giving us in terms of grapes of production. And finally, that is maybe another, let's say, example of our philosophy and sustainable mentality is another pioneer, let's say, invention that we developed in the years, and is a new trellising system invented and patented by Banfi, as well as the Horizon fermenting system, that is called Alberello Banfi. I'm trying to show you. So, this is a yen-shaped plant. I can't see very well because it's very sunny, but anyway.
Yes,
this is the alberello. Alberello means a little tree, which is working very well in the same rows with the sported cordon. So as soon as a plant with sported cordon needs to be replaced, it's much easier to do it with the sported cordon, just plant by plant. It's very, let's say, adaptive for poor soil. So like in the bottom, for instance, of Poggio alle Mura, it's only 4 or 5 canes per plant. That is reducing the number of ingredients, let's say, of the nutriments needed to the plants. is reducing the labor cost because of less number of cuts, and the less number of cuts as a chain also decreasing. We have seen in many years of experiment, we decreased the ESCA disease, which is also a huge problem for Mediterranean climate area, hot climate regions like we are now. So this is another example of how a kind of sustainable process pioneer invention, but with economical, very solid feasibility, is going to develop our philosophy in order to produce, once again, the highest quality of wine possible. So all of these are leading to wonderful premium wines, which is absolutely very natural and linking to the tradition of winemaking in Montalcino, but made with, let's say, a very modern head and absolutely open-minded attitude, like Cristina said in the beginning.
I like that, a modern head and an open-minded attitude. A couple of questions. One, forgive me, Jgor, is a little bit of a rewind, but I think it's worth asking, definitely. It's from Philip Goodband, MW. Hi, Philip.
Philip.
It's about the zones. Are the zones by soil or altitude or grid formation? I think you did answer that. You talked about altitude, not so much maybe about the soil, a little bit about the soils, but also the grid idea. That's quite interesting, actually. Are they irregularly shaped? I mean, how do they look? Can we build a mental picture of those zones?
And that's very complicated for us. We are not working in the agriculture because we don't really know where the zones are. Only the agronomist in chief, of course, and all of the people working in the agriculture, they perfectly know. They have a kind of a map of every vineyard, and they exactly knows which rows are to be picked or to be treated separately. And as you say correctly, the combination of this, so to let's say create this kind of little parcels, is coming from the soils, is coming, of course, from the altitude and a lot of, let's say, similar conditions, but also from the age of the plants, from the microclimate. Another more little example now where we are, luckily, as I said, we have a little breeze which is drying very well and is also helping the grapes to be protected by mold or the humidity, while down there it's completely different. So that's another condition to create a little zone. Once again, the drainage of the soil is a lot in this kind of technical, let's say, condition, because once again, in the bottom down there, the condition for the drainage will be completely different than the top. So usually, also the peaking era, the peaking timing can vary, sometimes even a week, just because of that. But a week in a place, let's say 100 meters far away. So it's incredible. But you know, the combination of all of these kind of little particulars make the zones different one of each other. And then the follow-up, which is maybe the most important thing, is that zonation would be nothing without the horizon system that Cristina mentioned, because we need to, let's say, follow up every little zone in terms of fermentation and aging. So if you divide in zone, but then you blend and ferment all together, it doesn't make any sense. So as soon as the little parcel is picked and ready to be fermented, one of those horizon big vats will act partly or totally, depending on the volumes, to ferment and to create a single vineyard wine with just a little parcel. So it's a huge combination. It's very technical, but it's amazing. There are places here, for instance, where in just standing up, like where I am now, and you can just go 360 degrees and individuate quite easily 3 different kind of zones. The last one we just launched in a few weeks ago, was a new, let's say, project coming from this concept. Is a new Brunello called Vigna Barruchetto. And if you will have the chance to come down and visit us, as well as all of the attendees today, it would be great to go there and just standing up in the top of the hill, and just by watching, every one of you will immediately realize that there are 3 kinds of zones in just, I don't know, 50 square meters. Because you see the color of the soil, you see the composition of the soil, you see the age of the plants. Some of them are also pergola style, very high, tall plants. Some of them are alberello. Some of them are very old, some are very young. So it's sometimes immediate, sometimes complicated. But the agronomists, they of course have a full map of the whole estate. and we are the largest contiguous wine estate in Europe. So it's a big work in order to identify every single zone, not only for Poggio alle Mura, but for the whole estate.
I think that partially answers a question from Colina Marshall. Hi, Colina. And asking what vine training and trellising techniques are used in the vineyard and how were those choices made. But I think you've gone some way to explaining that. But Colina, do fire away if you want any more specific detail. But Jgor, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add. But so you're using different trellising systems related to obviously the soil, obviously to like the microclimate there, etc., and any other conditions that may impact on those.
The albarello that I just showed you is definitely tailor-made for the Sangiovese grapes, and it's not working for other, let's say, international grape varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon or Syrah. It's 100% for Sangiovese. So we have 170 hectares only for Brunello di Montalcino, and the 85% now, as well as Poggio alle Mura, is albarello Banfi trellising system. Then, depending on the grapes, on the position, and once again on the zones, we are using sport cordon for the main of the property. But I just noticed a couple of years ago that we still have some high plants for Vermentino grapes. So we are cultivating Vermentino just differently because, you know, in this kind of global warming conditions, not so having very small plants and very close to the soil with warm coming from the ground as well is not that advantageous every time. So the canopy management, the leaf management is as important as the trellising system. So the combination of all of these factors is once again leading to the concept of zonation, that just by being very peculiar in every single corner of the state, you can do the highest quality. So if you know every 10 square meters, then you can get the best from those little parcels. And that's more or less the concept in the back of the trellising system and, of course, all of the agricultural products.
A quick question for me. It's all Sangiovese Grosso there?
That's a good question because Grosso is not really the name of Sangiovese in Montalcino. I mean, it's always been named Grosso, but the Sangiovese Grosso itself as a grape variety does not exist. So Grosso in Italian means just big because of the dimension of the berries. So if you leave a wild plant of Sangiovese in a very rainy year in the forest by itself, that would maybe be a Sangiovese Grosso or a Cabernet Grosso or I don't know, Merlot Grosso, just depending on the size and the berries. But that's only, another more reason why we deeply went into the clones study and research, because we were aware since the beginning that so many kinds of Sangiovese were in the same rows, and we were used to pick them all together and doing a wine with different varieties. So we deeply study each of them by micro vinifying for 10 years in a row and more, and we individuate those that were fitting our quality expectation. But in terms of technically speaking, Grosso is not the name for the Sangiovese or Brunello. Sangiovese is a big family with 650 supposed to be clones, and that we reduced to 18. And actually in Poggio alle Mura, only 3 of them are used to produce Poggio alle Mura Brunello. So it's a long story.
Okay, so but we're in one of the best sites without question in the world for Sangiovese. Another slightly off script, but intriguing question. Why is it that Sangiovese, there are some lovely examples beginning to emerge from some special sites outside of Italy, but generally speaking, if Cabernet is the international traveler, if Burgundy is the very cautious traveler that will only go to certain select places, Sangiovese seems to be just particularly suited to certain sites like Montalcino, like Chianti Classico, example, you know, very small parts of sort of central Italy primarily. So we're just really simply, why is that the case? Why doesn't this variety sort of travel more?
It's very simple, actually. It's Sangiovese in those category of grape variety like Pinot Noir or Nebbiolo that are getting the best only from the place of origins. Pinot Noir is a little bit different because there are so many Pinot Noirs all around the world and expressing absolutely high quality. But Sangiovese and Nebbiolo especially, they are also sometimes similar in terms of texture or I say aroma profiles, but also in let's say in theory they are like, I like to say, they are like wild horses. So you need to manage very carefully and very gently. And the combination of, as you said, of this kind of soils, weather condition is making these two grapes only living in specific areas in Italy. So you can find Sangiovese somewhere else in the world. Some Sangioveses are still in Australia. You can find them in Argentina as well, because some Italians emigrating in those countries were bringing grapes with them and trying to cultivate them, but never high quality as it is here or in the Chianti region or in the Montepulciano region. So I think it's just the attitude of the grapes to be cultivated in certain specific area. And even more complicated is that even if Chianti is just, let's say, half an hour driving from it, you actually can produce Chianti in Montalcino area from the same grapes. So even if we are so close each other, the style of the Sangiovese produced in Montalcino is always different from the style produced in the Chianti Classico. And into the Montalcino and both Chianti Classico area, the styles of Sangiovese are once again even, I would say, hundreds. So it's a specific grape variety which is finding its best, is giving its best only in the place of origin. And that's our pride. So we are so proud to be the leader producer of one of the most famous Italian appellation and one of the most important Italian grape varieties, Sangiovese, only in the central part of it. So, you know, I took a couple of kilos just picking without eating.
That's great. No, thank you for that. That very, very fascinating slight digression, which is good. You touched on more than touched on sustainability before and its importance. Now, I'm intrigued by a couple of things. One is how much and how fast you're having to evolve your viticultural approach and indeed winemaking approaches, if indeed you are experiencing either extreme weather or the effects of warming, which I imagine most likely you are. And the second part of my question will be, how does that reflect in the wine itself as well that are produced? So what's going on there with climate change?
Sustainability is in everything we do. So as Cristina correctly said, so we were born with this very, let's say, precise concept in our veins. So this is really part of the Banfi DNA. And so sustainability is just a way to try once again to get the best from the vineyards we are cultivating. So as I say, the erosion controls, water saving, dripping irrigation, trellising system, is everything just following a path going into high quality premium wines. And I also would like to say that doesn't depend on the price of wine we are producing. So every little wine in the Banfi production is treated the same way. So we are trying to make the highest quality possible independently on the price range. And this is possible only if you well know the place of origin. I think that maybe Cristina mentioned to be just so, you know, the Americans coming in Italy in such an amazing place at that time was probably also linking to the fact that the only way to be the best in the appellation was to study hard and to learn whatever possible to be learned from the territory, from the nature, from the environment. And this is something that we are still doing every day. So we just planted some experimental vineyards in our property just to try to face what the global warming will be, and experimenting rootstocks, new clones, hybrid grapes variety, not yet allowed to be used in Montalcino or sometimes not even in Italy. So we are in the winery experimenting some micro vinificators, some, for instance, the egg-shaped fermenter, just to understand, you know, it's everything under study at any time. So if you stop studying, you will probably stop to develop. So I think that in the future, and what is the identity card of the company now, is really to express what our pioneer philosophy was by keeping on studying, on researching, on learning, and try to make the environment at the center of this beautiful project. So we are producing now honey. We have some bees from few years, because bees seems to be, you know, the let's say the first sign that something is not good in the environment if they are not, let's say, well living. Then we are doing our durum wheat, and we produce a wonderful Banfi pasta. So at the Michelin star restaurant, you will have the chance to have a wonderful Banfi spaghetti with wild boar ragu. You know, I'm starving even if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Italy. So all of this is making the project sustainable and pioneering. So it's not to stop on and to just enjoy what we've done, but just to look much forward and try to anticipate the trends, not only in terms of production, but also in terms of warming of climate or hospitality. So it's a very, very full project.
Yeah, and it's I always think, and I've been taught to think of sustainability, unlike say being certified organic or even biodynamic. Sustainability is a whole series of paths which
exactly
you move down, and maybe some faster than others because you're more capable, and then others you have to put more work into. So it's an ongoing progression and a journey. Yeah, that's my sort of understanding of the holistic concept of sustainability. So we've had on the chat, David Robertson's asked a question about the future of Banfi. But David, if you don't mind, I might actually come back to that because it might be Jgor and Cristina a nice question to sort of wrap up towards the end to talk about that. So we will definitely come to you on that one. Thanks, David. So I guess all of this, Jgor, unless there's more you wanted to add about the vineyards, because it's been a great journey so far. And how does all of this translate into the Poggio alle Mura? And I guess with that, we could talk a little bit about, perhaps we should start with the 16 vintage, actually might be a good one, because I think 15 very good. 16 also looking very good is my understanding, mostly from reading rather than tasting, but in your own words, I suppose. Now you're going to tell us it's the greatest vintage ever.
Of course, the 16 has been really great, but I hide a bottle in the shadow here, because otherwise it will be boiling now. I grab it and show you.
Excellent.
So this is the result of the special site we are in now, and it's Brunello Poggio alle Mura 2016. I hope you can see the label quite clearly. So Brunello di Montalcino is well known to be, let's say, very nice, very difficult combination between pale color of Sangiovese, of high and firm tannins, as well as high acidity, and usually very high alcohol as well. So the combination of all of these elements is making Brunello harmonic, is making it absolutely balanced. So the difficulty to produce this kind of wine is just to find how these expressions of the grapes, of the terroir, of the zones of the winemaking, it can be the best in its wine expression. So as I said, Poggio alle Mura was absolutely special since the 50s, because naturally the people living here in the castle, they found out that this was the place where the grapes were the best. So healthy all of the time, a nice combination of quality and crops, so which is also very relevant, especially at that time where producing more meant to get more money as well. So in the end, what is now Brunello di Montalcino expressing is try to find a balance between the special side and the normal, the traditional characteristic of Brunello di Montalcino. So Poggio alle Mura has a magic power and is to enrich all of those, let's say, ID card characteristics of Brunello di Montalcino. So this pale color, this firm tannins, this high alcohol are very well, let's say, blended all together by the magic power of Poggio alle Mura. So what is resulting in this wine is that compared with, let's say, our flagship Brunello, which is the wine we are famous for, this is a little bit more concentrated, is multi-dimensional, is giving a little more richness in terms of color, so deepen red ruby color, even if as all Brunello has been aged for 5 years and 2 of those in barrels before release. And at the same time is also keeping a kind of complex and refined aroma. So leather, licorice, tobacco, well blended with black cherries, black currant, is definitely very, let's say, spicy and tertiary since the beginning, but with a very smooth and round approach. So it's at the same time finesse, is concentration, is power, but is also elegance. So it's, I would say, maybe the real top wine that is condensating what is in the back of our philosophy. So it's maybe the best way to understand Banfi, what Poggio alle Mura. So to drink a glass of Poggio alle Mura is a perfect combination of what the research, the study, and the big work in the agronomy is linked to the huge reserve in the winemaking, and once again in the nature. So this is a wine resulting absolutely traditional as a Brunello, but taking this kind of freshness and finesse and high acidity from the magic place it's cultivated. So once again, it will be long aging potential, very persistent. It will never get you tired. It's easy to approach because the tannins are not that, let's say, harsh, but since the beginning, they are quite rounder and softer and a little sweeter than you expect from a Brunello. But anyway, with a huge quantity, volumes of tannins is definitely very perceptive, easy to perceive in the mouth. So in the end, I think that this is a combination of a wonderful, elegant, and traditional Brunello, but once again with a modern touch due to the special place we are and the special condition and project that we apply to our winemaking philosophy.
Yeah, you mentioned it before. It's the tannins, for example, the structure. Everything is so well integrated, and that core of freshness and acidity, which really brings it to life. And it's really approachable and drinking really well now. And it's interesting, but then has that great window of time when it will develop and be beautiful and take on new dimensions and so on. So but it's great to see something that's being released at a time when you can dive right on in, basically. Yeah, and it's
as you correctly say, Andrew, this is a wonderful vintage. So we thought 16 was amazing, and indeed it was. But by the time passing and also trying and tasting the 16, now we just realized how beautiful and very well balanced is this vintage, thanks to a very, let's say, moderate climate during the whole season from harvest to harvest. So we never had any kind of hot peaks in the summer. Everything was definitely perfect with the perfect timing. So the beautiful temperatures day and night, or season to season, made the aromas very well kept into the grapes since the picking. So in the end, this is a 5-star vintage 2016 that, as you said, will last definitely years and years in your cellar. I recommend to drink, maybe buy twice, drink one, and keep the second.
We've just interestingly run a focus on Tuscany for an Italian report in Harper's Wine and Spirit, which Michelle Shah authored, who I'm sure you know well. But and she went to, and I was just on the tip of my tongue, it's the Brunello tastings that you had. And talking to producers about their 16 and 15 and so on. You've had, I think, a trio of good vintages, but 15s were excellent. This vintage sounds absolutely stunning. So it's everything seems to come together. We've got Philip, good band again, actually saying the strength of tannins combined with the approachability is something that's very, very special. A couple more questions in there. I wonder if this is thank you very much for that. And forgive me, audience, I'm lucky enough to be able to actually taste along and enjoy this evening.
I'm here too.
Yes, I'm along with Cristina. So there we go. So I think Cristina, you're back in the picture. And I am.
I was just enjoying hearing from Jgor, and I was escaping to Tuscany. He is magnificent. I'm so blessed to work with him because every time he speaks, I'm learning something too. That's the beauty of Banfi. We're always learning. We're picking up new things. Each vintage is different. Each wine is different. Each of our knowledge is shared globally because we have partners all over the world. So I think it's just, Jgor kind of epitomizes a lot of what Poggio alle Mura is. He's years of tradition and research, but he brings it all and combines it together into the 2016, which is, to me, my favorite wine I've ever had from our estate. I saw one of the comments. It's bold, it's lush, it's leathery and smoky with that hazelnut. But there's so much fruit and it lasts forever. I mean, the finish goes on and on. So, I could just listen to Jgor all day, and I'm never going to look at another PowerPoint or Excel spreadsheet. We're just going to have to drink Poggio alle Mura all day long.
Absolutely. Excellent. So I've got a question which chimes with the sort of one of the rounding up questions I had really for you, Cristina and Jgor. I've just got to find it. We've had a burst of positive comments about Tuscany being a magical place, about your wines, etc. And the question was, yes, it's very simply, what is the future for Banfi? And it's from David Robertson. Thank you, David. And they have vineyards in Piedmont producing fantastic wines, and also elsewhere. Will you continue with the diversity in other regions? So, we've got two questions really. What are you up to at Banfi there in Tuscany, looking to the future, and what about the broader picture, looking beyond Tuscany?
Sure. Well, I can help answer it. Jgor, feel free. So the future is so exciting because we continue to really focus on the knowledge of Montalcino. So one thing a lot of people ask is, are you expanding out and going further, more vineyards here, there? One of the core things as an owner and as a proprietor and a guardian, I should say, of this estate for generations, which I'm just blessed to be, is to really continue to evolve with the knowledge of the territory. So we are first and foremost dedicated to Montalcino, understanding its evolution, understanding, as Jgor was alluding to, the global climatic changes, and dedicated to constantly seeing predominantly the Sangiovese, but the other grape varieties like Vermentino, Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, a lot of others in the territory and how they're going to develop. That is a big focus for us. It's not as glamorous when people say, oh, you're buying a winery in Alto Adige or Sicilia, Apulia. And what we say is we have so much here because we are the largest single contiguous estate, perhaps in Europe. Yeah. So we have a lot to understand and contribute still for the future. So I'm very glad that we're family owned. We're a private company. We'll stay that way for generations, so we can continue to evolve there. But that being said, of course, Chianti is still a lot of what we do and is what we know Sangiovese very well. So we constantly are evolving with our estates in Chianti and how to produce a more outstanding Chianti Classico, Superiore, Reserva. We have a development in Bulgari called Aska, where we're dedicated to Cabernet and Cabernet Franc. All along the Maremma and along the coast, we're dedicated to our coastal rosé and the Vermentino. And of course, Piemonte was actually the first winery our family bought prior to Castello Banfi. So in Piemonte, something we're so excited about, and I think you see it in UK, we see it in the United States and globally, is Italian sparkling. Sparkling wines from Italy are all the rave, and there's a reason, right? It's the balanced acidity, some fruit sweetness. Obviously, Prosecco is so trendy, but we are in the region more near Asti region. Indeed. So we produce a Bracchetto d'Acqui called Rosa Regale, a red, sweet, sparkling.
Lovely. Mm-hmm.
We have a white version of that coming out. We also have a beautiful Alta Longa, which is a DOC G, which we're focused on. And Alta Longa produces beautiful Pinot Noir and Chardonnay for our Cuvée Aurora. And we're coming out with a Blanc de Blanc and a Blanc de Noir. There's so much development there. Yes, it's famous Piemonte for Nebbiolo. We have our Barbera, Dolcetto. But what we really love is the crisp acidity, kind of marry and balance with the beautiful, bold reds of Tuscany. So when we take the reds and the whites of Tuscany and marry them with that acidity from the north, we want to keep developing that. And of course, beyond that, it's the hospitality. How can you enjoy good wines without the experience? So one thing we want to keep emphasizing for Banfi, and Jgor and I try to do, is we want to bring Tuscany into your homes after this terrible year of COVID. We want a year and more. We're trying to bring Tuscany into everybody's lives, but it's a place everybody dreams about. I dream about. We all do. And I see it in the chat box. Everyone's like, I want to come. So one of the things we want to do is to constantly evolve that, to make it more accessible. You know, I think with the hospitality, people want to experience the city still after COVID because it has all the great museums and the artwork. But what we're finding is people want open air. They want sustainable estates. They want to breathe. They want to take bike rides. We just had the big bike race come through Montalcino, the what's it called?
Eroica.
Yeah, Eroica, where everybody rides their historical old bikes and it comes to the estate. We have a Brunello crossing, Jgor and I did. So we do trail running through Montalcino. We, you know, offer every experience, whether it's renting a Ferrari or getting on a horse. And we even have the bicycles that have the motors on them now. So the electrical bike, so you can go downhill after you have lunch with the Brunello, but you don't have to go back up the hill. You can switch on the motor and not work too hard. Because remember, when you visit Tuscany, you're here to relax and enjoy the Dolce Vita. And that's really what we're all about. So continuing to evolve that is our future. It's our present and our future. Jgor, I don't know if...
Oh, I couldn't have said that better. So I totally agree.
I do. We've got just a couple of minutes left, and whether we can fit in quite diverse questions really quickly. One more for you, Cristina, and I'm going to do my best. Forgive me, I'm going to get your name wrong. It's Jgor Naidu. Or Yegas Naidu. Would you consider investment outside of Italy, perhaps?
Sure. So because we're an American family, we actually do have vineyards in America. We have them in Washington State and Oregon. In Washington State, it's called Pacific Rim. We focus predominantly on aromatic whites, particularly Riesling, which I love as a grape variety. Because of the higher acidity and the range of fruit sweetness that can come from all different types of Riesling. I often like Riesling and Pinot Noirs and Sangioveses because they, again, take on such different characteristics. But it's very pretty Chenin Blanc and the Gewürztraminer. We have Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc. And then in Oregon, I love it because, as Jgor was talking about Pinot Noirs and how versatile they are and how different. And what you were saying is before Sangiovese can move around a lot. I mean, I'm sorry, Pinot Noir is grown around a lot. Sangiovese, not so much, you know, because people haven't been able to quite capture what Tuscany has with Sangiovese. Pinot Noir does, but it takes on such different characteristics. So I love the Oregon Pinot Noirs for America because they're the closest you can get to Burgundy without, I mean, Burgundy is still the king of all kings for Pinot Noir. But so we do, honestly, we've been partners with people in Australia. We have partners in Chile with Emiliana. We work with them on an organic label called Natura, which we sell in many different markets. And that's fun because that's pure organic. That's biodynamic and organic. So yes, we're always open to vineyards around the world. We are a global company. We're a team of global people. We travel and we always are looking at opportunities in that sense.
Okay, fantastic. And slip a quick one in here, which is actually about the winemaking, well, harvest actually. And picking. It's Colina Marshall asking, during harvest, was there any whole cluster stem inclusion or whole berry? Or if not, what do you find that brings to the wine? So we've hopped from the global picture right back to focusing on the vineyard. So perhaps, Jgor, that's one for you.
Yeah, you mean how we pick the grapes? I didn't get you.
Yeah, sorry. The question was whether there's any sort of whole bunch.
Okay.
Was it fermentation a question? Whole bunch fermentation? Whole berry?
It will be that, yes. I think that, yes, exactly.
No, with the stem, of course, because Sangiovese is already rich in tannins, so we don't need to get the tannins from stems. So we have the stemming, all of the grapes in the beginning. Otherwise, it will be much longer, the process to soft them in the aging. The wood is already a huge part of the aging of Brunello, especially. So we have the stemming, all of them. So no additional tannins for us. We got enough.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So hopefully that answers your question. There's enough there already, well endowed enough already. So excellent. Well, I don't know any more. Just any other questions? Got a quick little window. We're on the hour, so we've been very good. We've kept it roughly to time. But I don't know if there are any other messages that either Jgor or Cristina you'd like to add. I think we've covered some absolutely fantastic ground. It's I can just tell from the chat, it's really whetted people's appetite. Everyone's drooling over Tuscany and the vineyard there. So it's and we're all gunning to. We're lucky enough that we're back out with well, some restrictions, but hospitality fully open here in the UK for indoor as well, well, restricted indoor. So we're all able to go out and dine and wine as well. Again, which is great for everyone. So, but aside from that digression, any other words that you guys would like to add?
Come visit. Benvenuto. The plane tickets are cheap now. They're just going up. Come see us. We await you.
Well, yeah. I'm hoping from our participants today, and thank you very much. We've kept pretty much everyone to the end, so that's always a good sign. That there'll be a little blip in flight bookings actually this afternoon.
Good.
So yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you,
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
It was amazing.
Rebecca, Jgor, and Cristina. Thank you very much.
I'll wait for you in Toscana. Come soon.
I shall. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao a tutti.